In this Defeating Adventism, I'm going to show you a book that, as far as I know, no one's ever related it to the Seventh-day Adventist. The book I'm going to show you, here's just one copy of it. It's hard to see the cover. It's called the Emphatic Diaglott. Very well known in Jehovah's Witness circles. Not so well known in Seventh-day Adventist circles. So I'm going to show in this video the repeated use of this interlinear Bible by the Seventh-day Adventists, and it's an anti-Trinitarian book that you're going to see here by an anti-Trinitarian author, and the Adventists use it profusely. Now, it's no surprise, I guess we could say, of their use of this Emphatic Diaglott, as it's titled, prior to the so-called conversion to Trinitarianism in 1898 through Desire of the Ages. But you know what? They quoted from this book until 1953. Oops. Here we are quoting an anti-Trinitarian book until 1953. They've repeatedly but used this to support a number of biblical passages that they're using to explain in their Review and Herald magazine. So let me just show you what we're gonna look at. Here's an actual Emphatic Diaglott from 1866. First one was done in 1864. Here's one. It's actually a done later printing, which I'll talk about later. We're going to look at Handbook of Denominations, and that'll become important here in a minute. And I've got a couple surprises for you here. Here's a book by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society from 1963 called All Scripture is Inspired of God and Beneficial. We are going to look at this is the bound volume of the Watchtower magazines from the year 2001. They got all their magazines in here. We're going to look at one of the magazines in this issue. We are going to start this video with this fantastic book. Where has this book been in my life? I've been looking for this. It's called the Biographical Encyclopedia, and it's huge. And it's going to actually give us a great source of the author of this. And here's just another printing of the Diaglott, the Emphatic Diaglott, and who he is. So I think you'll find this story very fascinating. So let's look inside of this book here. And that's the very book that I just held up there. It's a biblical encyclopedia. Look at the subtitle: Chronicling the History of the Church of God of Abrahamic Faith. Book was copyrighted in 2011, written by friendly sources, by the way. I got it directly from a historian in the Church of God of the Abrahamic Faith. Now, I'm going to jump to page 283 in this book, and so let's learn about the author translator too, of the Emphatic Diaglott. You see his name there is Benjamin Wilson. You see when he was born, 1817, died 1900. You see there that he's the author of the Emphatic Diaglott. They don't have the date there, but it's 1864. A couple other things about him. He lived in Geneva, Illinois. That's where the 1864 Diaglott was published. He moved to California. California, isn't it interesting? In 1870, Sacramento area. He did some farming. He died here in California in 1900. The Diaglott itself, this interlinear, was printed at first in sections before it was printed as a whole book in 1864. That's why I saw quotes of the Diaglott prior to 1864 in the Review and Herald, because they were publishing from the pieces that were published first before it was published as a book. Benjamin Wilson was a self-taught Greek student and translator. Here's what's interesting about his book. In the Diaglott, in the Greek, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. Doesn't that sound familiar? But then in the Greek it said, and the Logos was, and it says, and he was a Logos. So it's very interesting. But of course, it's going to really appeal to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Now, this Emphatic Diaglott was of extreme interest to the founder of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, Charles Taze Russell, who latched onto it because of Matthew 24:3, where Benjamin Wilson used the word perusa, which is and it supported Charles Taze Russell's idea of a secret, invisible presence of Christ. It almost sounds like Adventism at this point. And they are. They're cousins. I often call the Watchtower the little cousins of the Seventh-day Adventist. Now, many people, back in the day when I first started studying the Diaglott and its translator, many people, Christians, and even Jehovah's Witnesses, would often say Benjamin Wilson was a Christadelphian. Absolutely wrong. Just look at the title of the book again. He's of the Church of God of the Abrahamic Faith. Now, he knew and met the founder of the Christadelphians, Dr. Thomas, and I've got a whole shelf of books over here by the Christadelphians and by Dr. Thomas and Robert Roberts, were the two shakers and movers in early Christadelphianism, and also Benjamin Wilson knew Thomas Campbell. Benjamin Wilson created his own journal. He titled Gospel Banner and Millennial Advocate. Now, the book cites, the book I held up to you, the big biographical book cites, and they're proud of the fact that Seventh-day Adventists quoted from the Emphatic Diaglott of Benjamin Wilson. Look with me here. Here's the Biographical Encyclopedia, page 296. We're going to look at the very bottom and then the very top. So at the very bottom of the page it says what? The Diaglott continued to receive attention as it was being avidly quoted by Church of God scholars in the restitution, by Adventists, by Russell Bible students, etc., because they loved to write the word perusa, like I said. So even they recognized that the Emphatic Diaglott was getting attention by the Seventh-day Adventist. Now let's look at this book here, which is my original restored 1866 Emphatic Diaglott. So you see the book here, and you can see the title page, the Emphatic Diaglott, original Greek of the New Testament, based on the text of Vatican manuscript, etc., 1866. Look with me here at John 1:1. Look at the Greek, right? In the beginning was the Word was with God, and a God was the Word. But then when he put it in English, he put the Logos was God. So of course the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and other anti-Trinitarians are going to like this book because it makes Jesus not God. He's lesser. So let's delve into Benjamin Wilson's theological positions as recorded in this book I held up earlier, the Handbook Denominations in the United States. And it says here on page 21, you can see we're talking about the Advent Christian Church. The very bottom of the page, which is blown up on the right-hand side of the screen for you, says, the church is the outgrowth of several independent local groups of similar faith. Some in existence as early as 1800s, others date their existence beginning. They also carried the name the Church of God of Abrahamic Faith. That's Benjamin Wilson's church. Look with me as the author here continues to talk about the theology of this Church of God, in this case, Church of God of Abrahamic Faith. They are Adventist in viewpoint, so they share a lot of views with Adventism. But look at the blue text. The emphasis in this particular church of Benjamin Wilson is what? It's on the oneness of God and the sonship of Christ. It's taught that Jesus did not exist prior to his birth in Bethlehem. There you go. See, they're an anti-Trinitarian group, much like the Adventists were when they started. No wonder they're quoting from the book. They were fellow travelers, weren't they? And it said then they thought the Holy Ghost is the power or influence of God. Now, like I said, I got 94 citations of this book in Adventist literature. So you know what I did? I searched. I have 7,799 Review and Herald magazines from 1854 to 1999 in PDF. By the way, if anybody's watching this and you got Adventist Review magazines that are after 1999 and in a searchable PDF file, do contact me. I'd love to have more than the 1999 that I have in PDF. So you know what I found? I got 94 citations altogether, starting in September of 1860 to July of 1953. Almost 100 years of citations in the Review and Herald magazine of this anti-Trinitarian book by this anti-Trinitarian author. So, 61 of the quotations are before 1898, used by Loughborough, Cottrell, Andrews, Wagner, Butler. Those names should be familiar to you. Here's the quotes that are of interest to me. 33 quotes are used after 1898 in the Review and Herald magazine by people such as Branson and Wilcox. Look with me here on screen. Here's belief number 2, taken off the Adventist.org website of the Trinity. And the Adventists profess a belief in the Trinity. And the text box in yellow are my words. And they say what? The Seventh-day Adventists are Trinitarians? Then why are you quoting from this anti-Trinitarian book for the next 55 years after 1898? Why do you quote from this book? Now, oh wait. Oh, it gets better. Oh, there's the C word. This got to make some Adventists nervous. All right, so here's what happened to the Emphatic Diaglott. It became the intellectual property of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Recall back, Benjamin Wilson died in 1900. Let's look at this book I held up earlier from the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society from 1963. All scripture is inspired of God and beneficial. And it says this, I blew up on page 322. Look what it says. I underlined at the top right-hand side. The Emphatic Diaglott. In 1902, the Watchtower Society came to be the copyright owners, sole publishers, and distributors of the Emphatic Diaglott. There you go. Since 1902, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society owned the Diaglott. So you know what else I got to say to the Adventists? There's 30 quotes from 1902 to 1953. You're quoting a Watchtower Bible and Tract Society owned book. Keep that in mind. Just as an point of emphasis, here is the January 15, 2001 Watchtower magazine. We're going to look, and that's the article actually they're talking about there on page 28, but we get to the end of the article on page 30, and I blew it up on the right-hand side of the screen, and it says what? In the early 1900s, the Watchtower became the copyright owner of the Emphatic Diaglott, Benjamin Wilson's Greek-English interlinear edition of the Christian Greek Scriptures. Okay, why do Seventh-day Adventists use a book from a false religious cult? Now, remember what I said. This book now is the intellectual property of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. What does Adventism say about the Jehovah's Witnesses, also known at their corporate name at that time, meaning Watchtower Bible and Tract Society? Look with me here, December 3rd, 1959, page 4, Review and Herald magazine, and there it is blown up. Many of our readers will no doubt wonder why these parents, members of the Jehovah Witness cult. Now, Adventists run around with their hair on fire if someone calls them a cult, but it's okay for them to call others a cult, like they just did here. So here they are. They called the Jehovah Witnesses a cult. What did I say again? But they're using their book to prove their interpretation of the Bible. So they're using a book from a cult. Oh, but it gets better. Let's continue. We're going to look at the August 1st, 1946 issue, and let's blow up this page, part of it here. And it says what? While Jehovah's Witnesses share some doctrines with Seventh-day Adventists, one must know their confusion on the Trinity, the Atonement, and the Millennium. Well, gee, isn't that great advice? Then why are you quoting from a book they own? And oh, by the way, we know the book is already authored by an anti-Trinitarian. So, what I got to say is, you know, Seventh-day Adventist, your belief in the Trinity is absolutely not serious. Here you are quoting from this book authored by an anti-Trinitarian, and who now is the intellectual property owners. And here's one. This one here is actually printed by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, the Emphatic Diaglott, from a false religious cult. Already in Defeating Adventism number 34, I showed in the children's books where Adventism completely does not understand the Trinity. They use modalistic explanations, tritheistic explanations, combined with Arian explanations. They just don't get it. No wonder no one should take Adventism's conversion to the Trinity serious, as shown in this video and the one that you see right here, Defeating Adventism number 34. Now, let me say this. Adventist, the remnant church. You're using a Bible by an anti-Trinitarian, Benjamin Wilson, that was purchased by another anti-Trinitarian group, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, that you call a false religious cult, to support your rendering of the Bible. You know what that means? This whole mess that I just said? It's an absolute lack of biblical discernment in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I've done so many videos that illustrate the fact of just lack of discernment in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and its so-called pastors. The message to you, my Seventh-day Adventist friends, get out of her. Get out of the SDA Church, because she teaches error. Lastly here, my Adventist friends, let me say this. Look at Titus 1:9. This is advice given for elders and teachers, of which there are really none in the Adventist Church that are Christian anyway, at least the ones that I've highlighted, because it says what? He must hold firm to the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine. There is no sound doctrine. Adventist, you have a history of unsound doctrine and a complete lack of biblical discernment. And in Adventism, just using this book, the Emphatic Diaglott, is just another example of the lack of biblical discernment that's in this church that calls itself the Remnant Church. It's not the Remnant Church. It's a false church. Get out of her, my Adventist friends.